Hi, I'm Mitch Shoemaker, and today is day 81 of my doing 100 days of YouTube videos and focusing on my writing. And I'm trying not to feel like I've totally failed this whole writing thing because I know I have spent the last several weeks like just doing poems or reading through a few things or jotting down random stuff, unlike the way I started in the beginning, where I was actually like writing a chapter and editing a chapter and writing a chapter and editing a chapter and working on 2 or 3 books of projects at a time. And now I'm lucky if I can do one, and I keep thinking I need to get back to where I was doing all the other stuff. That would be awesome. That was the whole point of my 100 days of writing. But writing every day or finding something to write about, to feel motivated, to have the energy to do it is not the easiest thing for me to do. Oddly, I have absolutely no problem daydreaming on a daily basis. Like creating the stories in my mind is not a problem. But getting myself to sit down and type up what I'm thinking in my head somehow is harder for me. I think I still have that barrier that I'm putting up because, as I've mentioned before, my daydreams, my stories, they're kind of my safe place. They're my escape from my reality, and typing them up kind of it's it removes the illusion, I guess. I mean, I know in my head they're not real, but it kind of typing them up turns them into stories. It's kind of not necessarily deletes them entirely from my head, but it it kind of it changes things. It makes it so the I don't need to daydream about it because I've written it. I've shared it with someone else, or it's done. It's over. It's time for something new. Um, it's the letting go part. I think that's hard for me. It's the being vulnerable. It's sharing it with other people. It's not knowing what's going to happen once I put my stories out in the world. And yet I've been doing that with my YouTube videos for um, like 180 days now. That's a lot of days. 181 if you count today, right? So, and not like I'm not capable. I'm perfectly capable of doing this. And today I was talking to my friend that I met at the park. Not met at the park, but we hung out at the park. I think I've called her my park friend on here. We haven't done the park thing for a while. But anyway, we're a little bit late exchanging Christmas gifts. So she came over today and we kind of exchanged, and then we were talking. And she was telling me all the things that she's doing for her New Year's resolutions. And I was just like amazed. I'm like, wow, this is really amazing. And she's like, oh, yeah, this is all because of you. And I'm like, I didn't do anything. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm completely innocent. don't put this on me. I'm like, I just think she's amazing and all the things that she's choosing to do to move forward in her life. And I'm just like in awe. And I was like, man, I wish I had her faith to just go forward and do that, to take that leap of faith and do that. And somehow she gleaned the idea of the things that she's doing from the conversations I've had with her, from what I've told her about writing my book, about recognizing God's hand in my life, and about doing my 100 days of gratitude, and how that's changed my perspective and my focus in life, and how I feel better when I'm doing all of these things. And I'm more aware of how I'm feeling. Haven't quite got to where I've learned how to take care of myself to feel better more often, or to let myself cry when I need to, or all of these other things that I've cried a few times this year. Don't get me wrong. I've hit my breaking point. Which is good. I know, because I feel better after I do. Like, just like I feel better after I journal. And there's always something. If I'm not journaling, it's because I'm avoiding something. I don't want to deal with something. I don't want to face something. And usually once I write it down, I either don't figure out what it is because it just was so minute and minuscule, it didn't matter, but I turned it into this ginormous thing that was big, huge, and scary. And then I sit down and write about it. I'm like, oh, it's not so scary. And so I think I did not write in my journal last night, and I could tell today. And I was like, dang, I can't believe it makes that big of a difference in my attitude. But it does. And then I did not write in my journal tonight because there's something that I'm avoiding. I'm not discussing it in my video. But not, and I'm just really tired, and I'm full of excuses. That is my problem. This is why these things need to be non-negotiable. But I realize that it's because I'm not facing things in my life. And when I'm ready to face whatever it is that I need to face, I'm willing to write, I'm willing to share, I'm willing to type, and or when I'm ready to let go. And I think right now, because whenever I'm struggling emotionally, I think I like to daydream. um, I like to hold on to those things, and I think that makes it harder for me to want to write them, because writing them means letting them go. Writing them means facing all of the emotions and the feelings that were stirred up, that I created the stories in the first place to deal with, because I stored them in my head, I stored them in my body. I didn't type them up to let them go. Been holding on to them, but holding on to them in forms of, stories, things that I have control over, and letting them go means that I have to feel the emotions. Letting them go means that I am letting go of control, or the illusion of being in control. And it is the process of forgiving. It is the process of moving on. It is the process of opening myself up to something in the future, to have all of my dreams fulfilled one way or another. Probably the way that God has intended, more than I have. But I know that things are lining up for me, and that I need to keep moving forward. And this is the direction I'm supposed to be going in. And some days I'm very excited about it, and I love words and writing, and I get excited about all the fun things that I can say about myself and how uplifting things can be. And then I go to write things that are emotional, and I can see the flip side, how words can be very hurtful and demeaning, and it's difficult. And then I realized that I'm healing writing my book, recognizing God's hand in my life. There's that part of me that's like, okay, well, I'm healing from this. Do I really need to put it out there? Because I don't know if people that know me and know the people that I reference in my book are going to read my book. Because the point of my book isn't necessarily to hurt other people. It's just to share my views on what happened in my life, which obviously aren't going to be the same way that other people viewed what happened to me in my life. So it's just kind of but I'm like, I don't want to create more hurt. I just want to put it out there to, I guess, for myself, to let it go. Also to, for other people that may be struggling and hurting, to know that there's a way up, there's a way out, there is hope through the Savior, to know that God is always there. He's always willing to help, always willing to make things a little bit better than we think they are, or realizing that it could have been worse, or or if nothing else, that that's past, and we don't have to continue to live in there, and we can turn to Him, we can turn to God and be filled with His love and His grace, and we can walk away from all that other stuff and just let it go. It doesn't have to haunt us. It doesn't have to follow us around. We don't have to keep repeating those same patterns. We can change. We have the ability to change. Reminds me of a story, and one of these days, I think that's why people actually have scripts, so they can look stuff up, so they can write it, say it correctly, and quote things correctly. And that's also probably why people edit things, so they can go back through and put something in the, I don't know, in the comments below or something, so you can read where that comes from. I'm not doing any of those things, so there's not going to be a link to the story. I just remember that there was a story about, I think it was military or something, and some general or someone was working with men that either had been, either they were in prison, or they'd been POWs or something. See, I'm getting the story all wrong, but the quote, the part that pops into my head is that someone was telling this man that leopards can't change their spots, and he's like, that's true, leopards can't change their spots, but I'm not working with leopards, I'm working with men, and men can change. So I don't know if anybody knows who said that, where that quote comes from, what that story is from. Feel free to share that, comment to me, let me know, because I'm not going to look it up. But but I know that I can change, with the Savior's help, with God's help. I can change. I can do things differently, and I'm grateful to know that. And I know that I've made a lot of changes. I've made a lot of progress. I have all of these videos to back up all those changes, all that progress. I just sometimes get mired and where I'm at. I feel like I'm, stuck in a blizzard and can't see anything but white, or stuck in the mud and I can see everything going on around me, and I'm like, and I'm stuck and I just can't quite reach my goal, and I'm like, I can see it. It's just right outside of my reach, and I'm stuck. And I kind of feeling a little bit that way right now, but because my friend did comment on my book, Recognizing God's Hand in My Life, I did decide to go back and look at it tonight. I didn't do a whole lot with it. Because I like that I'm writing this book, and I know that it's important for me to write it. It's just that going back through and reading it, and it's hard not to feel all of the feelings when I go back through and read it. And then I'm like, okay, I reread a chapter, and then I get to the end and I had like this highlighted section, and I was like, what do I need that for? I was like, apparently that went somewhere with something, but it does not go with any of this. So I just deleted the highlighted part, because I'm like, that's like repetitious or dumb. I like how this ended. This chapter ended, this section ended, it was fine. And then I had a whole nother several paragraphs of something that's not related to anything else, and I was like, oh, more just random stuff that's going to the bottom of the book, and I gotta go through and read all the random stuff and figure out where to put it, or just delete all the random stuff. But I feel like I wrote all the random stuff for a reason. Like when I first typed up the book, I spent like 2 days, like straight in a row. Like I could not stop thinking about all these different things. So I had to type them all up because they were all important. They all meant something. So somehow I have to figure out how these events work, either coincide with each other or have their own separate little chapter of something, and then figure out which order to put all of the chapters in. But first of all, I need to go through and figure out where they go, so they're at least in a chapter or a section, and then I can go back through and figure out how to reorganize sections and make sure they kind of flow. So it's the tedious part of writing that I don't like so much. I like the brand new, create something new writing, which is why I'm creating brand new stories in my head tonight. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. I should type this up. And I was like, and I have so many other projects to work on. I'm like, oh, I could just type up all this list of projects that I have all the different story ideas I have in my head. And I just started laughing because I'm like, oh my gosh. I probably have like 50 different books ideas in my head, and they're parts of series. They're parts of, generational characters that, from this one to that one to this one to that one. So they kind of all intertwine. At least 2 different series intertwine stories. And then I have some other random stories that I probably won't ever write, because I just probably won't ever write them, because they're just kind of random. And yeah, I just don't know. I I watched some old Western movies when I was growing up, so I created some kind of old Western, so I guess historical fiction type stories in my head. But I'm not really a fan of doing the whole historical fiction thing. And then there's something about when you write historical fiction, or you write stuff that's actually happening, people get really picky about how you write it. So you have to do all this research to make sure that you're using the right terminology for the day and age and whatever. And it's like, no, I ain't doing that. And although I am trying to write a book series that kind of starts like in the 80s or 90s or whatever, I'm like, I lived through that, so I'm pretty sure I could do okay with that. May still have to do some research for it, but that's a bridge I will cross when I get there, assuming that I ever actually finish writing that series. And that might be one that's just fun for me to write that I may not publish. I don't know. Because then if it starts getting into the future, which it might, because, like I said, it's a generational series, then some of the characters will be existing in the future. Then it becomes like sci-fi or something, science fiction, because anything that happens in the future. But I don't know if it's considered science fiction just because it's in the future, unless I create technology that doesn't currently exist. And then it's science fiction. Again, not really sure this is why the whole fantasy fiction, where I create my own little world and I can create my own little rules, and I don't have to worry about, what everybody else is, how everybody else perceives, not necessarily how everyone else perceives the world, but I don't have to worry about being accurate to present day or past tense or whatever. I don't have to worry about being accurate as to the days and the times and the whatever, how things happened or what people did during those times. I don't have to have the right jargon, the right slang, because I get to make up my own jargon and my own slang. And so I'd like to imagine I know what I'm talking about, but it's hard to remember the right terminology for the different eras, times, generations, and even words and terminology that I grew up with is like totally different and not used nowadays. 'Cause, each generation has their own random word. And then, of course, you've got the texting with all of the abbreviations, some of which don't even make any sense to me. And I'm just like, what the heck is this? And then, it takes my brain a while to figure out what it is because I just don't do the abbreviation things. It's like, okay is probably the only abbreviation I do. You got the okay instead of the AY at the end of it, but I mean, I'm sure I do other abbreviations too, but sometimes I just get really confused with them. So anyway, and now I'm just rambling. But I did look at my book, Recognizing God's Hand in My Life, because my friend said that my comments actually helped her. And it was kind of that little boost, that motivation reminder that I am doing this to help other people. And if just talking about it helped my friend, and she's doing amazing things that I would not have even thought. So I'm pretty sure she just took some idea that I mentioned to her and she ran wild with that inspiration that she got from God to do that with her family. That's not, I'm not taking any credit for that, honestly. I'm pretty sure that was God telling her what to do, just sparked something that I said just sparked something in her that she needed to do or needed to work on. So, but maybe that happens in my videos. Maybe I say something that sparks something in someone else that's watching these videos. And it's like, hey, I have an idea. Hey, this is a reconnection with God. Hey, I can do this. Or maybe something in my books, if I get them published, not if, when I get them published. We stick with the when. I am going to do this. I am stubborn and determined. I will do this. I don't know when. I don't know how long this is going to take me to figure out, but I'm going to do this. Anyway, but when I get them published, it may spark something in someone else. It may be something that they need to read or hear or see, and just know that, something tragic, and out of that I learned something positive, something good, or just recognize that at least God was there and I was not going through all of that alone, and that I can change. And if I can do this, you can do this. Sometimes it feels like to me that it's so much easier for other people than it is for myself. But again, that is me judging my insides off of someone else's outsides, and it doesn't really work that way because I don't know what everyone's internal struggles are. And if I weren't sharing some of mine on these videos, you wouldn't know what my internal struggles are either. So it's that reminder to not judge, to not compare myself to anyone else. Try not to compare myself to myself either, because that doesn't really work. Because I'm constantly changing and I'm doing the best that I can. And every day is a little bit different based on whatever's going on in my life for the day or for the moment. So I need to remember to be gentle with myself and to be grateful that I can at least keep doing these videos and keep attempting to do some form of writing, and knowing that things will get easier and get better the more that I work on myself and trust God, and the more consistent I become with myself. So I'm grateful that I'm at least trying to find something to write or to look at my writing every day by doing these videos. It's at least keeping me focused on that. So at least it's a constant reminder of what direction I'm going in. So this is, the most consistent I've probably been with myself. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the things that I'm learning doing all of these things. And I think that's all I have for tonight, because I'm just going to repeat myself if I don't stop. So if you like these videos, you can hit like, subscribe, share with someone else if you think they'll enjoy them too. And I hope you have a great day full of gratitude and maybe some writing.